Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, we got a great show lined up for you today. First, let's talk about when white nationalism becomes mainstream. We'll share with you what's happening within the Border Patrol Agency and how one of their union leaders is espousing white nationalist ideas and philosophy. What happens? We'll have that conversation. Also, the unrealistic expectations of college students. Do you believe that college students truly think that when they leave out of college, they're going to be hitting six figures? Yeah, that's what I thought. Reality hits you. We'll have that discussion. And the death of YouTuber Kevin Samuels and the life of relationship gurus. We'll be checking in with relationship expert LaDon Black to talk to us about this growing trend of what we see and the mysterious circumstances around the life of Kevin Simmons. And then later, of course, we're going to check in and talk a little bit about Dave Chappelle's attacker. My question of the day is going to be this. Should we be happy that his attacker was attacked? We'll have that conversation. Plus, I got this week's last word. So stay with us. That's all coming at you right here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome. It is Friday, May the 6th, and welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Very, very excited and happy. Thank you so much. Oh, first, let me just say this on a personal note. I just want to thank all of the folks that wished me a happy birthday this yesterday. So thank you so much. Truly appreciate it. I know Cinco de Mayo, a lot of people were thinking about partying and doing what they do, but taking a little time out to say, happy birthday and wishing me well wishes and all of those great things truly was humbling and just from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to say thank you. Folks, we got a lot to talk about because there are so many big conversations that are happening. This first conversation I want to have with you is about this idea of white nationalism. Now, some of us might believe that white nationalism is on the outskirts of our mainstream discourse, or whether it's about politics, social issues, economics, healthcare, whatever the case may be. We have been conditioned to believe that white nationalism is out there and we are over here. But I want to share with you folks, white nationalism is right here. It's all around us. The thing is being able to differentiate and to make the judgment on what you're hearing as being nationalist, white supremacist language and what you're hearing from someone that just might have their views. And this is one of the big things that we wanted to talk about today, because there is a growing number of people, not just random people, not just any old Joe or any old Jane no. There's a growing number of people in power that are espousing white nationalist, white supremacist thought. And they're doing it on major platforms. Now, some of you might say, oh, President Donald Trump, he's one of the big ones. Yes, he is. But then there are others who may not, who unlike the president, are always in the mainstream. One of them being Tucker Carlson. Yeah. One of them being Sean Hannity. Yeah. And so many other people, including even those that work in our government. And so we wanted to talk about this growing trend, how white nationalism is really has become very, very mainstream in this day and time. I am joined by my brother. I'm always happy to have him. He gives us great insight. He is a diversity, inclusion, and equity specialist, and he's joining us for this conversation. One of our culture crew members, Brother Shinedu Wakwafor. Shinedu, thank you so much, brother, for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you for having me, Farajii. I'm glad to be here and happy belated.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about what is going on right now with this larger idea of white nationalism, because people don't think that it's actually so ingrained in our society and in our, lexicon, the national lexicon of policy, of social issues, of culture issues, all of those things. People tend to believe, oh man, it's not here. Especially, I live in an urban area. White nationals live in the rural woods, in the woods of West Virginia, or they live in Pennsylvania. They're not coming to Chicago. They're not in Los Angeles. They're not in Detroit or Baltimore. No, 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 no. But the thought, and the thing is, Sinead, you know this and I know this, it's not KKK like we've seen in the early part of the 1900s. It's cloaked in a very, very different vernacular. And what we're seeing right now is something that I think is very, very fascinating. And here's the reason why we wanted to have this conversation. USA Today, they did this story about a Border Patrol agent who goes by the name of Brandon Judd. Now, Brandon Judd he's a Border Patrol agent, but he's also president of the National Border Patrol Council, which is a union representing more than 18,000 Border Patrol agents. He had a conversation on Fox News by an anchor named Bill Hemmer. And Keena, let's post what Mr. Judd had to say as he was wearing a polo shirt, and this shirt was showing that he was a part of the Border Patrol agency. I want to put his quote on the screen there, if we can, Keenan. All right, take a look. Let's go back to the other one, dear brother. The one that there we go. All right, so this is what Mr. Judd said in his interview with Fox News. He said, quote, "I believe talking about Democrats trying to change the demographics of the electorate. That's what I believe they're doing. They want to stay in power, and the only way to stay in power is continue to stay elected." Now, this quote that he is talking about is about the fact that he believes that there are lax border enforcement. And so when allowing people to cross the border without any real restrictions, and he believes that it's a part of a larger conspiracy by the Democrats to allow immigrants to come to the border to fill up the United States so that way they can vote Democrat and essentially take over the election and keep Democrats in power. But he blames immigrants for this. He blames Biden for this. And this is something that we're seeing as part of a larger conversation around that white nationalists and white supremacists has been espousing. This is an idea that they blame other people. They blame Black people. They blame brown folks. They blame people outside of white communities that says this is the problem. Now, he's blaming the president as being weak on these policies, but then he's saying that once they get in there, and this is something that you might hear from some folks, some white nationalists, you might hear them say, oh, they're coming across the border and they're bringing crime. They're dirty. They're infested. And they're ridding our cities they're plaguing our cities. This type of language. Sinead, what do we make of this when you have an individual like Brandon Judd, who is part of the federal agency, who is the president of an agency that has 18,000 Border Patrol agents under his command? Take a look at him, folks. And this whole idea, this is what they call replacement theory. And replacement theory is one of the main tenets of white supremacy, white nationalist thoughts. And he said this. This is not unusual because we also know that if outside of border patrols, you have police officers that have espoused certain these type of views in dealing with Black people and dealing with diverse communities. What do you make of this, bro?
Well, you started by saying, even though you may not see the white supremacy in cities like Baltimore, Philadelphia, you do, but you see them in policy. You don't see them in person. What I make of this statement by Mr. Judd is it's just funny, especially when you realize that when it comes to white supremacy, a lot of those folks who espouse the idea of white supremacy are not even aware that the foreign people that they hate create a system that they benefit from. You brought up Donald Trump, our once presidents. I think Sonny Halston likes to say twice impeached and disgraced, because that's what he is. He was somebody who had an issue with China and this and immigration, but then you looked at the back of his ties and we saw where they were made. When you look at some of the things that are keeping our country going is because of the power of immigrants, whether it be in the state of Maryland, where we have a program where we allow some immigrants to come over the summertime to pick the crabs or get the crabs or get the seafood that we all end up enjoying during the ending analysis of it all. And that's the problem with white supremacy. They love the benefit of immigrants, but they don't like the immigrants themselves. And then when you think about border control, the word border, in my opinion, has always been an arbitrary term. Whoever's drawing the line says that this is the border and this is that and that and that. I just think, and I hate to say it, I just think that it goes back to what, rest her soul, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing said many, many years ago. Their race is getting smaller in number. Statistics has shown that. And I think this hysteria with the white race, thinking that it's the black people, the brown people coming to attack them. See, when you're guilty, you think the other folk are going to do to you what you tried to do to them, and that's never been the case. And it's this fear of annihilation. It's just been proven. It's the fear that their race, their time, not only in power, but their time on top is just coming to an end, which, when you look at the statistical data that says that I think by 2040 or 2050, that white folks in this country will be a minority. They don't know what to do.
So we're in this unique position. You started off your remarks in AU saying it's not on the outskirts, it's not on the fringe, it's right there, right? It's like cloaked in political rhetoric. And I agree with you in that regard, because the dog whistles, the euphemisms that's often used, right? Whether we're talking about from Donald Trump, whether we're talking about from Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? I mean, here's a woman that recently spoke at a white supremacist convention, give the whole speech, right? And then there are people are like, well, and she tries to defend, like, I'm a representative, I'm working for Congress, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if you were a representative of the American people, why would you align yourself being on the agenda, getting time to speak to that group, knowing that optics, the power of optics, right? Knowing that. So you did that because that's how you really believe. And two, you don't care about the power of optics. You're just like, hey, this is what I am. And the old saying that if somebody shows you who they are, and I think Dr. Maya Angelou said it, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And it's like we're still in a space of denial, Sinedu, about believing that somebody can actually think like that, whether you're talking about Trump or anything. These are more of the vocal ones, right? But when you have a person like a Brandon Judd who is working behind the scenes, we don't know who the Border Patrol Union president is. But here's a guy that has the power to influence policy, as well as has a voice and a seat at the table to determine who gets across the border and who doesn't. He's a guy that has aligned himself with this. Now, he might be saying, well, no, I'm not a nationalist. This is what I believe. But it's hard for me to believe that somebody just happens to believe that immigrants are bad. They're dirty. They're the reason why the Democrats want them in, because they want to get power. It's hard for me to believe all of that just on your own. And then you go on to one of the most biased networks, such as Fox News, espouse these views, and it's not like challenged. It's not like, it's like, okay, great. You fall in line with it. I think there's a real concern that we should all have, that there are people in this government who claim one thing and then they do another. And I'm wondering, Sinedu, if it's really about, I mean, there's no way in the world that you wouldn't know that's like a Josh Hawley or a Ted Cruz or any of these people, right? That you didn't know what their views were. I didn't know. That's hard for me to believe, bro.
They all know. And we see this with every Trumper who got fired, who comes out with a book now and is pretending that he's a menace. But it wasn't a problem when he was being menacing and they were there and being complicit. They all know. And it's unfortunate that it's this game of pretentiousness. And it's also a game of, when you mentioned Donald Trump, I thought long and hard to ask myself, is he just a part of some quote unquote great conspiracy of white supremacy? No, it's a little bit more senile than that. It's actually very good for business for these folk. You say this, you get endorsements. You say this, you can. I mean, think about those people who stormed the Capitol, those white nationalists. I like the word supremacist better than nationalist. I feel like nationalist kind of is a softer tone.
Yeah.
You storm the Capitol and you do things that are illegal, that are against the law, but they knew that they had a huge backlog of donors that would save them, that would put money, people, hard everyday workers that are putting in money. And I think it's scary because even though the thought is fringe and the thought itself can be very rural, where you would think it's the middle America, those who are not, but it's being propagated by the high end, very intelligent, very powerful, also white people.
Yeah.
And you never see a correlation between poor and rich in unison like you do when it comes to white supremacy. For some reason, that correlation of poor and rich no longer matters, where usually it's the poor saying eat the rich, but not when it comes to white supremacy. And I think when you think of this nation being a great nation, this nation and those who participate or benefit from white supremacy, they've never made any type of penance towards what they did or what they are doing. They just created new ways. You know, you stop slavery, then here comes Jim Crow. You stop Jim Crow, here comes mass incarceration, and so on and so forth. Because folks don't want to make penance for the wrongs that they have ailed in, because in their minds, it's just my belief, it seems like maybe it makes them smaller of a person. They'll just continue to recreate the narrative that once existed from the moment that they stepped on this line. When you think about borders, Farajii, and the idea of borders, it's a foolish thing. When you look at the example of Haiti and Dominican Republic, it's the same country, it was. And then someone comes and draws a line, and all of a sudden, you are not you, and this is not that, and one is less than, and one is equal to, or what have you. It's absolutely preposterous. It's dangerous, and in this age of technology, it's way more widespread.
Let me just say this as we kind of wrap up this conversation, and I want to, you know, and we can't get everything all in the few minutes that we do have, but I wanted to bring this into the discussion, because I went to do a little research and say, okay, let me find some modern references to what we're seeing, because there's this growing trend. And folks, that's really one of the big reasons why I wanted to have this conversation, especially with my brother Sinedu, is because I wanted us to not think that this is some obscure, or we're just totally oblivious to this. You and I have to be able to have the power of discernment to understand what's being said. We get so much information running across our minds, you know, that we're scrolling through, that we're taking in each and every day. And so language is so important. That's why we have to be very, very intentional about the language we use to describe the circumstances that we're either seeing or experiencing. But let me just share with you this piece that I read from an article from called "How White Supremacy Returned to the Mainstream Politics," and this is by an author by the name of Simon Clark. Keenan, let's post his quote on there very quickly. This is what Mr. Clark said. Check this out, folks. He said, "In such a changing landscape, old-fashioned racist and xenophobic appeals are unlikely to be politically successful beyond a small fringe, so the propagandists of racism have had to develop subtler approaches to stoking fear and hatred for political ends. To do so, they have repackaged racist traditions in language and forms that could more easily enter mainstream political discourse." Mr. Clark is a white man saying this, and I got this from the you can go and check this out. It's a fascinating article. It's from AmericanProgress.org, and this is based on a report that was done by American Progress to identify and calling out white nationalist ideas and that are infiltrating U.S. political discourse. Folks, look at that. Look at this. That we're in that time, and I'm wondering if those ideas become mainstream, the work that you're doing, diversity, equity, inclusion, how do you counter that force to make sure that there is some disruption of some of those ideas, or there is some debunking of some of those ideas? Because, some of our people, we're so we so ripped up and we turned around and up is down and down is up. We might be like, yeah, he right. He right. It's the immigrants' fault. Yeah, he right. He right. It's this group's fault or that group's fault. So based upon the work that you're doing, how do you counter that type of propaganda?
Oh man, it's almost a sad response that I'm going to give you. There's almost an impossibility. It's almost an impossibility simply because when you think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're doing it correctly, one of the main tenets in bringing in a diverse workforce is dismantling white supremacy. It is at the top of everything, and that becomes difficult because sometimes if you're dismantling a house that you're living in, where do you then go? When this system is so intertwined to the everyday lifestyle that sometimes it's easier to pick through little pieces slowly but surely to hopefully one day get to the bigger overarching thing that, hey, we got to dismantle white supremacy. But it's very difficult. And actually, I go to trainings with other colleagues in the space, and that's the number one thing and that people ask, that how do we fix maybe this small thing here if it's emanating from a bigger thing of white men in particular and their beliefs, and how that in theory is the building block of all systems in this country. No one really has an answer, but that doesn't mean that we stop working. It has to be a continuous fight that even after you win, you even fight harder.
Well, we do need to have an answer. I'm serious. We do need to have an. There's no way. Here's why. Mm-hmm. We need to have an answer because they have a very concerted. They have a game plan on how to get this message out there, right? Mm-hmm. So they and I'm talking about white nationalists, white supremacists. They know that they can't go through the streets of urban centers of cities across this country, on a horse and dressed like the KKK. So how do they do it? They infiltrate systems. They infiltrate institutions, right? They get on television and they build up their following for their platforms for people to listen. Let me just share this with y'all, folks. Mm-hmm. New York Times, they did this expose on Tucker Carlson over these past couple of days. It's a 3-part series, and they call it White Nationalists. And in that 3-part series that they've done, they looked at over about 1,130 shows of Tucker Carlson, of 30 episodes of Tucker Carlson Tonight. And they looked at it, and they determine how many times he has stoked white fear, how many times he has blew the dog whistles and used the euphemisms and espoused those conspiracy theories. I mean, and it's so many times. But guess what? Tucker Carlson has the most profitable and one of the most popular shows on cable news. He's like the #1 guy on cable news, not just Fox. He's making Fox News so much money, and there are literally so many people that are tuned into him. You got to have a game plan to counter that. And so they have a megaphone in him. And so we have to have a megaphone for us, right? We have to make sure that the platforms that we use, we can't be silly and start to thinking like this is just going to be swept under the rug. This thing is like a wildfire, in my view, Sinedu. These ideas are like a wildfire. Not to say that all white people are going to subscribe to them. I don't believe that. But I do know that if you touch on somebody's dissatisfaction, which we are seeing with white America right now, if you tap into their dissatisfaction, if you tap into their fear, then you may have a convert to that way of thinking. And that's the thing. We can't say, well, we'll try to figure it out. No, we better have a game plan. We better have a game plan, because they're coming into Congress, they're coming into our state houses, they're making policy for us. They're in those positions that really impact our lives. And I'm not saying this out of fear. I'm saying this out of strategy. They're in these positions that impact every element of life. That's why we see what we see from Florida to Texas, the governors, they're talking of the culture wars that we've been discussing. That's why these things are happening. And it's not, they are part of a larger school of thought. We got to have a game plan, bro.
You're right. And I think the thing about our community is that we are not we don't have a monolithic way of thinking. We don't have a homogenous way of thinking, if you will. We're just, our thoughts are so vast that it can't, the benefit in a lot of these white supremacists that no matter how different they are, their general theory matches up with each other. Whether you're a white supremacist from the South,
right,
the West or East, or even out of the country, because we heard what they said in Ukraine during the war of who can get on the buses first. We heard that. And we heard what they're saying in Hungary as they're starting to play Tucker Carlson at the CPAC that they have there and reverberate his rhetoric. I think what we must do, because at the same time, there is a benefit of this quote unquote white nationalist, white fear. It brings chances and opportunities for DEI to do their own infiltration. I'll give you an example. After the death of George Floyd, may he rest in peace, and Breonna Taylor, do you know what a lot of corporations did? They built a DEI team. Never had it before. They built one, and a lot of them are being ran by Black people who are creating strategies all throughout our society that involve Black and brown people penetrating these same areas.
Yeah.
Now, the thing that happens then is like, okay, now we've penetrated Congress, we've penetrated the private companies, the public companies. Now that we're there, now that we have power, this has become our biggest issue since the days of Martin Luther King. Who becomes the rallying call? Who gets to give the word, the marching orders? Will people want to take a more Martin-esque approach or a more Malcolm-esque approach? And that's where it becomes difficult, because the trail, if you will, or the journey to Black folk saving ourselves or staying alive or staying connected, it comes from a vast array of folk who believe that it shouldn't just be an A or B approach. It should be an A through Z. It should be different ideas and different ideals. And that's where it becomes really complicated, because when so many people are saying so many different things, it's so many different factions running around themselves. And I think that is where we are.
And look, as we're having this conversation, it just goes to show you how on time we are with even having this conversation. Folks, breaking news out of CNN, where Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, it was decided upon by a state judge down in Georgia. Folks in Georgia, y'all got to listen up on this. Judge Charles Boudreaux, he said in a 19-page recommendation that Marjorie Taylor Greene should not be taken off the ballot because, or shouldn't be disqualified over her role in the January 6th insurrection. This is what the judge, now look at his reasoning. In his 19-page recommendation, he said, quote, the challengers have produced insufficient evidence to show that Representative Greene engaged in that insurrection after she took the oath of office on January 3rd, 2021. The recommendation will now be taken up by the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. This is a Republican. This is the same guy who Donald Trump said you should try to find the votes for me down in Georgia. Y'all remember that? And according to CNN, it's possible but highly unlikely that Raffensperger will overrule the judge's recommendation and disqualify Greene on her own. Look at this. Look at this real quick, folks. There were groups, advocacy groups, legal analysts, scholars, folks, and community leaders that said she needs to be off the ballot. She's just doing too much. And this judge says she will not be disqualified. She shouldn't be disqualified because she was not engaged. She may not have been engaged, but did she create the winds by which January 6th could take place? Y'all remember, I wish we had enough time right now, but there was a picture of Josh Hawley. And Josh Hawley was there. It was a picture as he was walking out. All this mayhem is happening from January 6th. He walking out with his fist in the air. Y'all remember this? I don't know if some of you may have seen this picture. He walking out with his fist in the air like he's in solidarity. This is what's happening. White nationalism becoming. Now look, again, he said insufficient evidence. But if you look at the record of Marjorie Taylor Greene, how is it insufficient? Everything she's a believer in some of these conspiracy theories, like the replacement theory. She believed that the election was stolen. All of these things. But she should not be disqualified from the ballot. And this might be, I'm going to say it, this might be one of the ways that they keep Trump on the ballot for 2024. Absolutely. That there's not sufficient evidence. Or Farajii, because he wasn't, quote unquote, engaged, because there's still a lot of mystery about whether he was engaged in January 6th or not, that he may not be relieved from the ballot. This is the stuff I'm talking about, folks. So I'm saying that because this is the place we're in America, and we have to be very intentional and cognizant, and most importantly, we got to be willing to fight to figure out how we're going to move forward in this country, because these forces are coming at us. If they're judges, if they're council people, if they're state representatives, and if they're presidents, then we got to have a game plan.
Farajii, it's interesting that when you were reading that and explaining what has happened, that connection, that continuation, the only thing I could think about was how when Barack Obama was running, how they made it a huge deal that he had any connections with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and Jeremiah Wright.
Right.
Where he had to repudiate these two human beings as if they were the bane of existence in this world. And how these two gentlemen have never did a national insurrection, has never led people to say hang the president or nothing of that nature, but just the idea that Barack Obama could be associated in any way with two Black influential leaders could have caused him his presidency. It just shows that at the very end of the day, this white nationalism thing is so powerful that even the white folk, quote unquote, who may seem like they want to help, at the very end of the day, their plan is not Democratic or Republican. It's white, irregardless of anything else. And it's very dangerous. And you're right, Farajii, that is exactly how they would put Trump on. And once it works, this is the thing that we're noticing. Once it works, everybody else does it. You saw it in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill. Once they got that, all the other states that align, and that, like you said, it's a strategy. It really is a strategy. And people don't like hearing this as a solution, but that is why we have to vote. And then after we vote, you hold those people who are elected to represent you the same way you hold your kid that you send to an HBCU to represent your family and represent the culture. You got to do it, because that's the way this game that they're playing, that they wrote back when we were 3/5 of a person, that's how you win this game.
Yeah. I'm just looking at some folks, and very quickly as we go to a break, Taylor checked in and said, we don't know what was presented to the judge. We are all watching this mess. A judge has to go by his paperwork. So that goes back to the legal complaint being insufficient. Janelle checked in and said, just because hate is winning in the marketplace, there are things on which we can stand together. The race class narrative is the winning narrative, and solidarity will win. B Dizzle checked in and said, Georgians are going to have to turn out like never before and defeat her in November. Facts. And I know that Stacey Abrams is running for governor down there. Brother King Lee said, if the U.S. Department of Justice have any criminal evidence against Trump, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or any of those racist politicians, then they need to bring it forward now. Now. I'm in agreement with that, like right now. If they are weak, if this administration that is composed of a moderate politician, a black woman, you got all these black folks and Latinos and other, if this administration doesn't, and I said this before, if y'all don't handle this, take on the cancer of white nationalism and white supremacy, voting is not going to destroy democracy. None of that other stuff. That white nationalism is the greatest threat to democracy in this country right now. White supremacy, those ideas, those conspiracy theories, all of those things. That is the great threat facing this country right now. Look, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to shift gears, get a little conversation about the expectations of college students as they're coming out of college, and they're facing the reality of what they're actually going to be paid and what they're worth. We'll have that conversation. And then at 4 o'clock, we talk about the death of Kevin Samuels and the life of online relationship gurus. Stay with us. A lot to get to here on The Culture on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punching!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice
to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
Folks, welcome back. We wanted to switch gears from the first conversation that we just had to talking about expectations and reality. There has been a number of college students that have been facing some unprecedented circumstances and challenges because of COVID, because of educational experiences. And now there is a new challenge that is facing the college student. Here's the new challenge, folks. The reality that when they get out of college, they're not going to get a job or jump into a career automatically making six figures. This is one of the big misperceptions that are facing college students right now. Unrealistic expectations about the future. There was a recent study that was done conducted by Real Estate which found that across all majors and institutions that today's college students expect to make $103,880 in their first post-graduation job. Now, this is according to Real Estate Which, the survey company. But the reality is much lower, as the average starting salary is actually about half that at $55,260, statistics show. The survey found that across all majors and institutions, undergraduate students overestimate their starting salaries by 88%, and that 1 in 3 worry that they won't make enough money to live comfortably after graduation. I want to bring back Culture Crew member Sinedu Wakwafor to give us some insight on this, because Sinedu, you've been working, first, you were a graduate of college, the great Morgan State University. So you understand exactly how expectations and reality expectations take you one place, reality will smack you down and humble you in some way, right? Absolutely. But to see that there was this perception, and this was a little shocking to me, Sinedu, that you're coming out of college, you're thinking you're making over six figures. I'm trying to figure out what the hell were you thinking? Where did you get that from?
I'm curious to know the institutions those people went to, because coming out of an HBCU, I did not have that thought whatsoever. And it's not because that HBCUs give you a lesser education. No, I just remembered the old adage, work twice as hard just to be half as good. Sometimes that means fiscally as well. And also, I think my generation is of the time where they think that, working your way up is no longer a thing. And it is, irregardless of what your major is. It's still a humbling coast until you get to where you get. And actually, it has been my experience, at least, and some of a lot of my colleagues, we actually have had a higher meteoric rise than a lot of our parents. So things are even, when my dad explains to me what he made when he came out of college, and again, adjusted for inflation, things are kind of a little bit better, but I'm not sure where people think that they're coming to school to get, I don't know if they took an economics class at all, if they were explained how the school thing works, especially when you think of what we talked about, I think a week or two ago about student loan debt. And when you think about that coming out with you, before you get your degree, you have to go through exit counseling where they explain to you how much you owe, the principal, and how they're going to assess taxes and all that good stuff, and interest, on that. So where that idea comes from, it possibly, let me tell you, it possibly might be from the fictitious nature of social media, where super successful people in certain realms of life show success. Just like you see a successful rapper on Instagram with 1 million followers, all of a sudden you think that if you started rapping, that'll be your situation, and it's just not the case.
No, I think that plays into a huge part of it, and I'm glad that you brought that point up. I think that when college students, and I think to your point, everybody everybody is susceptible to believing something that's not true, right? Mm-hmm. We all are. So, when we see that, when we see young people, especially now, who get into an industry, whether it's arts and entertainment, whether it's sports, whether it's in tech, and we hear about these stories of young people, 20, 21, 23, 25. They go into an industry and then boom, they blow up. They get some fame, they get money. And I think that is why we need to have very, very different conversations with any student, especially high school and college age students, about the future. Because we take the stories, if you look at the story of Bill Gates, of how he started Microsoft, or you look at the story of Steve Jobs, or you look at the story of any of these millionaires and billionaires, you would think that could be everybody's story. Mm-hmm. There's a great book out called The Outlier. And that book talks about how certain individuals, and I'm going to get the name of the author, folks. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But that individual, there are certain people who they achieve far beyond and outside of the norm. That's what makes them an outlier. So Bill Gates is an outlier. He went through the same process that all of us has gone through, elementary, middle school, junior high school, then high school. He got introduced. Malcolm Gladwell, thank you. Malcolm Gladwell wrote this book, and he talked about the trajectory of Bill Gates, the trajectory of Steve Jobs and others. And he's essentially saying that they're outliers. Like, that is not the norm. But what made them not the norm was that they were introduced to, Bill Gates was introduced to computer programming at a very, very young age. He was given the opportunity. Same thing with Serena and Venus Williams. They're outliers. But because their father had took them from the time that they were small children, small girls, and cultivated them, that's how they became great. We could say the same thing about Tiger Woods. There are people. So when we hear these stories, we don't understand, I think Shanae do, that there's a backstory. There is a back journey that takes place before you get to the money, before you get to the fame. And I think, to your point, social media has removed that part of the narrative and just said, you're young and good looking, you can get money. If you do this, you can do that. In my profession of media, please. Let me tell you, it said it in this. There's a report, folks, by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And in their report, they do what they call these salary projections. And in their salary projections, depending on the major, it kind of dictates what your actual salary is, but based on the industry. And for example, if you're looking at, check this out. Most fields, they say, saw increases in their salaries, not to 100,000, but they saw some increases. Like for example, agriculture and natural resources, they saw a 5% increase. Humanity majors, they saw a decrease of 14%. And communications majors saw a drop of 4.7%. That's me. So if you go into communications and you're thinking, you're going to make millions of dollars because you cute, or because you can speak well, or you can dress. Oh, I know how to read a script, but you don't put in the time and the work, it's not going to happen. So I think that to your point, that's a huge part of it. Like there has to be a reality check for college students about what they should expect in the future, bro. And I'm wondering, why aren't colleges having those conversations, or are they?
I think they're, again, I think even when they are having those conversations, again, we live, and you keep saying that that's you. That's us, Farajii. That's why my second degree, I had to pivot, because communications just, it doesn't pay. That's just the truth. But I think when you look at expectations and you look at social media, I have said this once before and I'll keep saying it. I think it's important to localize your expectations rather than going for the big national examples, the Bill Gates, those type of people of that area. Look at your local state where there are many millionaires there who are everyday people that many people haven't heard of, you yourself included. I remember a professor, I can't remember his name, but at Morgan, he told me, I love teaching, but I'm a millionaire. And then he asked everybody to guess what makes him a millionaire. And everybody asked so many questions and so many answers, and they were all wrong.
Hey.
He owned a couple of gas stations, a couple of Dollar Trees, and a whole bunch of vending machines. And his idea was to tell them that sometimes to become wealthy, you don't have to do these big extravagant things. You can do little things that pay dividends over long times. And then he challenged even further and asked, why? What exactly do you want? And when people explain what they want, it had nothing to do with a whole bunch of wealth. What the average college student usually wants is comfortability. Will I be able to get a home, a car? And you don't need to be buku rich to do that. You need to know how to manage your money, manage your expenses, combine your money. He used to talk to us about how when he was in college, they combined their monies to make it grow for everybody faster. So when you think about those who say things of the nature of like, expecting to come out making six figures and stuff like that, I think about the Nigerian community my parents come from. A lot of them had no money, even after coming out of college. And shout out to immigrants, because a lot of immigrants who come from a foreign land, they may have degrees and still start all over again. So shout out to them, because that's what both of my parents did. But what their community did is they had a collective economics where people not only brought their money together, but their ideals together. And today, they're all successful within the same realm because that mindset was able to grow. The most successful Black people in the world are Nigerian.
Yeah.
That can be proven. And that's because it has to be a mindset that is bigger than just the flash of a quick social media post that is probably less than 1% of reality.
Right. Look, McCole checked in on our page and said, yep, we have to have multiple revenue streams. If you want to make it, if you want to be well off, let's not use such elementary words like rich. You know what I'm saying? When I hear adults be like, I want to be rich, I'll be like, what are you in the third grade? What the hell? Oh yeah, you want to make $1 bazillion too? Like, like what the hell is that? Rich. I just want to be rich. You want to be wealthy. You want to be well off, right? But look, and this is promulgated in our culture. Of course, in hip hop, that's all it is. You 21, 22, you can spit some bars. Oh, I was listening to I forgot the artist's name, but he had to be in his early 20s, like 22. I think it was Lil Durk or something, Lil Baby. Talking about I made $40 million last year. Now, if I'm listening to that, I'm a grown man listening to that. And I'm like, okay, you made $40 million. I don't know how. But okay, fine. You made 40 million last year. What you doing with it? You know what I mean? My mind start going down that road, and they do like, okay, what you doing with your money? You just splurging it at the club? Are you buying cars? Are you investing in something? Like, how are you keeping that money running, right? So the culture has created this space for, especially for the next generation, where you get money fast, real fast. You get a lot of it and you get it fast. So I think that's one of the big issues too, right? There's a cultural component to this, because nobody would have an expectation if they didn't believe, and that belief wouldn't have come out of nowhere. There's an attitude that, no, I'm worthy. And I know everybody, this is the other thing, and as we wrap up this part of the conversation, Sinead, everybody claims that when you walk into a room, you know, I see this on social media a lot. When you walk into the room, you walk in there like you were sent there, right? Okay. But guess what? And people have to say, well, they tell them, make sure you tell them that you pay you what you're worth. You haven't done anything. If you don't have that experience, one or two, how are they going to say, I'm going to pay you what you're worth? How is it that in some industries, such as law and medicine, they don't pay you a lot of money? You a law clerk. You a resident. You working crazy ass hours. You know what I'm saying? You know, they don't pay you. You don't get that money overnight. That doesn't happen. But you can't expect somebody to pay you all this money and you have yet to show and prove that you can do the work, and you could do the work excellently. I'm going to just create a new word. Should they do excellently? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like people come into, and I know, you know, I remember working in radio at Morgan, and I would come across students all the time, and they would say, oh, Farajii, you know, I mean, this is cool. Public radio is cool, but I want to talk about this. And I was like, you want to talk about commercial radio? That's fine. But let me just tell you something. There are really no young voices in public radio. You would be better off blazing the trail, because I'm in it. So you would be better off making a way and making a name for yourself in public radio as a young Black person versus going into commercial radio and being on some hip hop station that nobody will remember you. I don't know how many people took that advice, Sinead.
A lot don't.
Because that's a lot of work.
just like the 40 million that a little baby or whomever made. You have to also think of the mindset. The idea was to show that money, not to grow it.
Right.
That's a huge issue with this generation, and it's my generation included. And I always tell people, I make a decent amount of money, but I always tell people that whole thing of, you know, demand your worth and add for. If they don't pay you your worth, don't always leave. You can now pay yourself, and that's by investing in yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, no job will pay you your worth. Only people who will pay you what you're worth is you. So if you can now utilize your job to now pay yourself, that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother segment. Project.
Hey, man. Hey, until you pay yourself, and guess what? You still, let's stop playing games as we wrap up this conversation. Even if you go in business for yourself, you are not going to, if you are in a real business situation, it takes, they said, on average, 3 to 5 years to turn a profit. Every cent that you make in your business needs to go back into your business. You ain't gonna make no real money unless you're consistent, unless you stay the course for 3 to 5 years. That's what they say on average.
Somebody can verify this, but Uber just became profitable, I think, last year. Uber, this global thing, just became profitable last year. And I think Lyft has not become profitable yet.
That's true.
People need to understand that. I'm glad you said that. Real business takes real loss and real dedication.
They take a loss in the beginning.
Yeah.
They take a loss. Let me tell y'all, I'm telling y'all, and that's why I said the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. Look at the stories of Apple, Microsoft, all of these big companies that we looked at. Look at the story. That's the book right there. I'm telling you. Fascinating read. Fascinating. But look at the stories of all how these, Like Steve Jobs, they were losing.
Broke.
They were losing. You know what I mean? Even the story of Facebook, all of these, like they didn't start from, I mean, yes, they were, but see, check this out. Here's the thing. These guys were put into a position to win because they put in that 10th, and this is what the book Outliers talked about. You got to put in those 10,000 hours.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put in the 10,000 hours before you can start to see some benefit from it. If you ain't putting no 10,000 hours on anything, if you're not consistently strong, like I put 10,000 hours on this media work. I'm just letting y'all know, putting 10,000, I wasn't getting paid. You know when people ask you the question, should they do what job you would do even if you wasn't get paid? I damn sure can say media, because I wasn't getting paid for a long time. And it's cool. But if you don't put those 10,000 hours in, if you ain't willing to grind, like for real, to sacrifice something for whatever you plan to do, please, you ain't serious about getting wealthy. You ain't serious about being rich. So that's something we got to do. We got to change the conversation and give college students and high school students realistic expectations. Folks, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about relationships. The death of YouTuber Kevin Samuels. Here is the self-proclaimed relationship guru that garnered 1.4 million followers on YouTube, put a lot of videos out there, and he made a lot of people upset. We're going to check in with our relationship expert, LaDon Black, to give us some insight over this rise and trend of relationship gurus and so much more. Stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. For the second hour of the show, we wanted to have a conversation about something that everybody on Twitter has been talking about for the past 12 hours, which is the unfortunate and yet mysterious death of self-proclaimed relationship guru, Mr. Kevin Samuels. Now, it came out late last night that Kevin Samuels had actually died. But many people were trying to figure out whether it was true or not, or if it was just a false claim. And then I started to see it, and Brother Roland started to even post it. He posted it. I forgot what time he made his post about it. But he said he was trying to check his sources, and based upon that, they could not confirm or deny whether Kevin Samuels had actually passed away. Well, a few hours later and early this morning, I saw the reports. I saw it from Revolt, and I saw it from some other sources, as well as now it's been confirmed by NBC as well, that the relationship guru Mr. Samuels has actually passed away at the age of 56. Police had gone to an apartment in Atlanta, Georgia, to find him to be unresponsive. They had tried to do CPR on him, but the woman that was in his apartment with him at the time said that he was clutching his chest and had simply fallen to the ground. And so there is talk that the cause of death may have been cardiac arrest. But as a result of this news and how the news went about, people are now asking the question or looking at his catalog, his catalog of work, and are now saying, what did he stand for? Now, Kevin Samuels was a controversial voice because not only did he talk about the role of men and women, some people say that he just completely disrespected Black women. So I had to have this conversation, but I could not have this conversation with just me and Sinead. I wanted to bring in our relationship expert, LaDon Black, to give us some insight as to what we're seeing, not just with his messaging, but this idea of online relationship specialists. So LaDon, welcome to the show once again. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, Farajii. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely. LaDon, Kevin Samuels, first and foremost, when did you learn about his passing? Were you just kind of in a state of confusion like I was last night?
I definitely was. I mean, people, like you said, were posting last night, but none of the reports were substantiated. We didn't hear it from a qualified news source. And I think a lot of people didn't run with it until his mom actually confirmed to NBC News that her son had passed. And then people were like, okay, this must be real. So, we weren't sure what was going on for a very long time.
Yeah, so here's the thing about his mom, and I thought this was an interesting quote that she gave to NBC. Keena, let's post that quote, brother, because I was like, that's a hell of a way for a mom to find out that her son had passed. But this is what she said to NBC News. Check this out, folks. She simply said, and I want to, if we can pull up that quote, Keena, did I send you that one? No, we did not. All right, let me just share this with you very quickly. She said, quote, that it was a terrible thing for social media to put it out, and that she didn't even know until she got on social media and saw at that time what she thought was a rumor. Mm-hmm. She found out from social media that her son had passed away. And she said she hadn't even been notified. Mm-hmm. She said, all I'm doing is requesting that people pray for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, that has to be absolutely heartbreaking, to say the least.
It is. I mean, it's so sad. As much as we embrace social media and the way it's allowed people to have platforms and to, find new careers and find new expertise and to get rich, that's one of the downsides of it, is that everybody's a reporter at this point. So sometimes stuff gets out there and the family doesn't even know yet. And it can be shocking. I mean, can you imagine opening up your phone and finding out that your child is no longer here?
Oh my gosh, no, mm-hmm. No. And that's truly the sad part. So, like I mentioned, that there's talk saying that it may have been cardiac arrest, which mm-hmm. is ironic that if he had heart failure, mm-hmm. that was the line of work that he was doing. Right. Was trying to mend or work with the affairs of the heart, and so it's kind of a crazy circumstance to be victim of. But let's talk a little bit about his messaging, his ideology. He was controversial because one of the last controversial things that he said was when he talked about, he said, if you're 35 years old mm-hmm. and you're unmarried, you're a leftover. Yeah. I want to make sure I get that quote, but that's LaDon, what?
Well, this is the thing. I think a lot of times when you look at people who come to prominence via social media, via YouTube, they're entertainers. And I think people forget that. Like, you watch them because they're funny, because they're controversial, because they're entertaining. So for him to say something like that, And for it to go viral the way it did, that's what he was good at. He was good at sort of hitting you in the heart with that stake and having you go, wait a minute, I've never been married and I'm 40. Am I a leftover? Or if you know you're not a leftover, you're like, well, let me get on his page and say something real quick or put my own video up.
Right.
He was good at that. And whether or not you think he was a qualified expert or not, you cannot deny the entertainment factor when it comes to his messages.
And see, that's the other part about it, because, like, for example, and you know, the work that you do, LaDon, is, I mean, you're an author, you host television and radio shows, you provide counseling to people. Like, this is your life, right?
Right.
This repairing the damages, getting people to fall in love and to work through all of those issues. Like, this is your life. And so part of me is feeling like, when we look at these quote unquote self-proclaimed relationship specialists or relationship gurus, I'm thinking to myself, like, and people are literally listening to them.
Sure.
Is this a sign that the traditional sources for relationship help, whether it's your faith institution or whether it's like certified counselors like yourself, is this the sign that people just have lost trust in what may be coming from you and what may be coming from those institutions?
Well, the thing is, you have to be clear about what your background is. Like, I'll tell anyone, I'm not a doctor. I didn't go to school for this. I'm your best girlfriend when it comes to relationship advice. And that sort of spiraled from writing a book about my own experiences into writing books about my listeners' experiences into TV, radio, things like that. But I think you always have to be honest with your audience about the fact that if you're really having some serious issues, I have some doctors that you can talk to. I'm not the one. And so I think in his case, you know, it was entertainment. It was light. I never took him seriously. I thought some of the things he was saying were crazy, maybe even wrong sometimes, but I saw it as entertainment and it was entertaining. So no, I would never govern my life based on what Kevin Samuels said, but would I, you know, take in a few minutes every now and then? Absolutely, because it was entertaining. But if you're having true issues and you have true concerns and you're trying to figure out this love thing, you have to kind of know a person's background. And he shared like he was a stylist or something, you know, like this was not a therapy situation. This was not someone who went to school for this. This is someone who was able to speak well and was able to communicate effectively, who had a platform, and it just grew. That was his background, a guy who had had some relationships, who wanted to talk about relationships. And if you keep it real with people and let them know where you're coming from, then I can determine whether or not your advice is worth my time.
And that's the part. That's the part. It's like everybody is seeking some sort of guidance, right, on something, especially when it comes to the affairs of the heart, when it comes to love. And I'm thinking, like, you know, people, and I don't want to use this term, but for lack of a better word, you know, people are in a desperate place because we know on the other side of it, the statistics show that, for example, this generation they're not getting married quite as fast as the previous generation. They're not having children. So that's not even in their long-term plans. They're not looking to build a family. Most of the, you know, the millennials and all of those folks, they still living at home. They're trying to stack their bread. You know what I mean? They still, so family and love is so far from them. Their idea of love might, and I'm not saying this for everybody, but it might just be an online connection. It might just be a situationship.
Right. Or it's very casual, you know, I'm
very casual,
and,
very
you know, I don't get upset about what you do. You don't get upset about what I do.
Exactly. You avoid feelings, you know, I'm not going to catch feelings for this person and all of that stuff. And so I think I think that what he tapped into that level of desperation. Now, I think he also armed people with some myths and some stereotypical thinking, right? That is like, okay, bro, okay. But even himself, like, he was 56, he was not married.
Right.
And I'm not saying that married people give you the best advice, but I am saying like you gotta be in that struggle.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when I got married, LaDon, one of my uncles told me, he said, man, don't hang out with no single people. I was like,
you in trouble,
these are my friends. So I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, boy, you better find some married people to hang out around. I said, okay. Years into the marriage, hell yeah, I agree. You know what I mean? Because we hear about the stories of the girlfriend or the homeboy that gives the married person some advice. Like, you gonna let him do that? You gonna let her do that? I wouldn't.
Right.
And that's from your single life perspective.
Right.
Not from a committed, you know what I mean? We're going to try to work this out. Like, sometimes the things you do in marriage doesn't make sense to a person that's just dating.
No. It's totally different.
I'm just trying to wrap around, like, to speak to the fact that he spoke to the I think a real place of need for a lot of people.
I think he was really effective in tapping into insecurities. So, you know, if I'm a woman over 30 and I have kids, and maybe my kids have different dads, but I feel like I have financial success. I have my own home. I have my own car. I still want a brother who has all of those things and more. You know, what's wrong with me that I'm still single? He would tap into that. You know, I'm a young brother who's on the come up. You know, I don't have everything, but I'm attractive, but women don't seem to be interested. What is it about me that they're not tapping in? And so he would break down your looks. He would break down your sexual abilities. He would break down the fact that maybe you have too many, baby mamas and baby daddies in your life. That is sort of, limiting the world of dating for you. You know, he would tap into these things that were sort of hot buttons for people, nothing new, but things that sometimes you may even think about yourself sometimes and say, well, wait a minute, maybe that's why love hasn't worked out.
Right.
And, people ran with it. And then he had some loyal followers that lived by what he said.
I wonder how far, and I'm not trying to be funny or anything, but I wonder for those loyal followers did they find love? You know what I mean? No, I'm serious. Like, you know what I mean? Like did his advice give them any level of benefit? I want to bring in Culture Crew member Sinedu. Sinedu, you've been checking out the conversation we've been having with relationship guru. I'm about to call her relationship guru, LaDon Black. But what's your question for LaDon, Sinedu?
First of all, LaDon, I think everything you said was perfect and right on. And I think a very important part that you mentioned was the entertainment factor about him. It's not like his advice wasn't good or it was bad, but you have to remember it's a business. It's entertaining. The more provocative thing he says, the more excited people get. And may his soul rest in peace. And that's a very important thing. Like, whether people liked him or not, we lost a brother either way, and may his soul rest in the bosom of the Lord. But my question for you is, now there's a vacuum. What do you think happens now? And let's keep it real, because this is America. This is show business. That's how it works. Who you think is coming next? What is happening now?
You know what? It's going to be another man because the men sort of move into the same male space. So I can't remember the brother's name right now, but he was really popular because he would do the videos in his car and he would look all deep.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Women advice, and then he had a little issue that he may have been somebody extra in his marriage, and then he fell off. And then all of a sudden, Kevin Samuels took over, and blew up. And then we can't forget the Steve Harvey era, when he was writing all the books and women were running around, using his advice. So
90 days, girl, 90 days.
Wait, girl.
Yeah, we're going to just wait.
Y'all don't realize men can be patient. It's still regular life. So, what I'm saying is there'll be another male space. There'll be another internet, YouTube relationship guru, a man to fill that space. Because the thing is, women, and I'll just speak for women, there is a hunger to understand relationships, and an even larger hunger to understand relationships from the male perspective. So if you're a man who appears to be attractive and suave and have swagger, and you can put a sentence together and you're consistent, you might be able to take Kevin Samuel's space next time. You never know.
But here's and the brother that I was thinking about is Derek Jackson.
Yes.
Online Culture Crew. They Derrick Jackson. Everybody like Derrick Jackson. I remember him. But see, here's the thing. Here's my real concern around this. That, and I agree with you, LaDon. I think that another man is going to step up. But I've been seeing more and more of these videos, especially from younger brothers who are like, you know, if you want to treat a woman like, you got to be consistent. I mean, it's and look, let me just tell you something. Like, as a man, it sounds good. It sounds smooth, right? But then I'm like, well, why are black women so, and I'm using black women as an example. If that was the case, if all of these black men got it, oh, you know what, you can, sister, you got to treat her like a queen. You got to be there. And it's like, then why are black women so dissatisfied with us? Like, if it was really that simple, like nobody, and my wife and I have had a conversation like this, like, are we asking the right questions? Like, or when we go out to dates, and I've been dating for a while, so it's like, are we asking those questions like, hey, you know, have you been in therapy? There are some things that I may need to know as we move forward. Like, you know what I mean, LaDon? Like, I just feel like it's coming across as being too easy. Like, yeah, there's a difference because the guy that opens up the door for you versus the guy that doesn't open up there. And it's like, it's so much more than that.
It is. It's so much more than that. And then I think when you watch these videos and guys are like, well, put her first or treat her well or consider her feelings. And those are all great platitudes. But what they don't say in these videos is put it to work, right? Because I think everyone knows what a good man is or what a good woman is. But are we willing to actually put the work in to do the things that we're putting in these videos and saying that this is what it takes for a relationship to actually survive? And the question is, or to me, I think we're not putting in the work. So we'll watch these videos and be inspired and be all hyped up for our dates and then go on a date and we don't have nothing to talk about, you know? And so, you know, how are we connecting these messages to the way we actually live our lives on a daily basis?
And Sinead, I know you got to hop off, and we appreciate you, brother. So thank you so much for checking in and being a part of the conversations today. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. LaDon, but one of the things that, you know, when you're talking about putting it first, and I said this, and I'm no relationship guy. I don't even want to be seen. I don't, you know, I mean, I have a platform, I'll share some ideas, but I'm not coming, I do not want, hey, so brother, please, no, sir, don't come to me for that. But I do think that it can be very problematic. It's a very slippery place where we start to take ownership of just very little experience that we've had, right? And I see this, and what we're seeing is that it's talking about male-female relationships. And I'm sure you see it every day. It's so easy to tap into one's dissatisfaction about another. It's easy to tap into it. When I see social media posts about it, fellas, tell me that you get 1,000 comments, right? Man, these ladies out here, all it takes is one ignorant person to say, oh man, this situation here. And then it's so easy to tap into that. And I'm wondering, are we doing this to ourselves? Are we creating this disparity? Are we creating misunderstanding? Are we creating this huge gap that can no longer be bridged because we can't let go, we can't sacrifice, we can't compromise, or we just have these attitudes of how men and women should be? Are we making our own relationships dysfunctional?
I think in many ways we are, in that we, you know, post these questions on social media. We have these experts who sort of touch the hot buttons when it comes to, you know, relationships, but nobody's really offering a real solution. And nobody is really saying that there are two sides to every argument. You know, if you think about some of the themes that Kevin Samuels addressed in some of his videos, talking about the woman who's pursuing a man with money because that's the type of lifestyle she wants to live. Or talking about, how good you actually really look. His big thing was, if you step right out of the shower, rank yourself, before hair, before makeup, all that stuff, talking about natural beauty versus enhanced beauty, talking about, a man's, ability to satisfy in the bedroom. If you can't do that and you're not making money, then why are you even dating? So really sort of touching the things that we feel sensitive about anyway, but not really offering up a solution. And I think that's where you sort of leave people out there on their own. So I'm going to critique you. You're going to call my show. Yeah. I'm going to critique you and break you down, but I'm not going to give you anything to build you up or to point you in a different direction or a different way of seeing things. And I think sometimes that is the harm in everyone being an expert, is that they don't know how to fix what they break down. And then unfortunately, what happens is that you have people who feel like, well, maybe I shouldn't be in the dating game because of this, or you've been embarrassed, or you have people who are just taking in, the segments, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I never even thought of myself that way, but maybe I need to think about myself differently. And so we are sort of working against ourselves, because people are entertaining. They're not doctors. They're not therapists. They're there to entertain, but we're taking it as actual advice and trying to kind of make it work for us when it wasn't even meant for that. It was meant to make us laugh and to have us repost it and share it. It wasn't necessarily meant to fix our relationships.
And I think to that point, LaDawn, which is why, like, you can't get your advice from social media and memes. You can't fix love like that. Like, even just the daily, I tell people all the time, like, when you marry, it's the day to day.
Right.
It's the day to day. It's not the vacations moments. It's not, you walk into the room and there's flowers on the bed. Like, yes, all of those things happen. But if you can't wake up to your partner and in a offline, in a regular day, it can't do something to make your partner happy. Those are the moments that count, right? Versus the day-to-day. I've read so many, and it's been so many unfortunate stories of relationships that are seen on social media, but then behind the scenes and in real life,
it's a mess.
It's a whole mess.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole mess. And as much as we know that intellectually, we know that. We be like, oh, I don't believe that this person, oh yeah, but their boyfriend or their husband or their wife, they go out all the time. But do they actually talk?
Right.
Like, do they actually share? Do they actually, I mean, those things, it's a day-to-day, being in a committed relationship, you've often talked about it. It is a day-to-day intentional effort.
It is. It really is. And I think in this age of, Instagram and Facebook and everything else, we get caught up in the pictures, it's our anniversary. Look at this great place we went to. Oh, look at this great gift that he or she got me. We get really sort of caught up in the imagery. Like, the thing that drives me nuts is relationship goals, like #relationship goals. And I'm going to go, you have no idea what those people are dealing with in their house or what it took for them to get to that point. And so I don't think you make couples a relationship goal, but you can see something positive in what they have and say, well, wait a minute, how can I fit that into my life? But I don't think you make anyone relationship goals because you don't really know what they're dealing with behind closed doors.
And you should not look at memes, and I'm talking about images, and just automatically say, you know what, that's what I'm gonna try to attain. I hate that. Like, we got these. I know people gonna hate me now, dog, but I see these images. It's like these animated images of a girl laying on the chest of a man and be like, "This is all I need in life."
That's not all you need in life. A lot more. That's a lie. That's nice, but
that's not all you need in life.
We like,
what I'm saying?
Like all that stuff.
That's insulting to some Black women. Like, all you need in life is a man.
No.
My wife would tell you, he's not all I need in life. It's okay. That's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, the man or the woman or whoever, your partner, it should not be your whole world.
No. Not at
That's
all.
unhealthy.
Not at all. Not at all. Because somebody's going to be
That's
burned
the
out.
stuff that people be on. Like, man, all I need is just somebody to come home to. Like, come on, man.
No, you always need to have a sense of self. I mean, that's really important because if you don't have a sense of self, the person that you're with is going to get bored with you. So you always have to have something just for yourself. And what you bring to the table in taking care of yourself sort of helps the whole group or helps the couple grow. Right. And I think a lot of times, we talk about in terms of, if someone meets someone new and then they shut down all their friendships. You can't do that. What makes you attractive is the way you operate out in the world. And if you shut everything down and you make this person your world, after a while, it's going to be like, well, wait a minute now, this is too much energy, it's too much responsibility, and there's no growth. A person can get tired of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as we close this part of the conversation, again, LaDon, I always appreciate you for giving us the real. But how, for those who are looking and seeking, and saying, okay, Kevin Samuels, he's passed on. Derek Jackson is out the picture. Where do I need to go? How do I start to get a better handle and a better understanding of love and relationships?
You know what? I'll start with this. I would say, definitely still look at these people who have huge followings, because I think anyone has some quality in what they're saying. Don't take it all to heart. Don't follow all of it. But I think you can find a good nugget in anyone who has, a heart of wanting to fix relationships or wanting to put advice out there. But if you're having true challenges, like love is never working for you, relationships are awful, you feel like you have so much baggage that you can't even get into a new relationship, then go see a professional. There are relationship coaches that are certified. There are therapists, there are doctors out there that this is their space. Sometimes you need to step up from just some, I just had this thought last night and I posted it type of advice. Sometimes you need real help. And there's nothing wrong with pursuing true help when it comes to your relationship life.
That is absolutely, I love that advice. That's some advice that I think we can all follow there, LaDon. So I appreciate that. LaDon Black, who is an author. She is a relationship coach, and she is a media personality. You can hear her on so many different platforms. But LaDon, where can people find out more about the work you're doing?
If you want to connect with me, you can always connect with me, Instagram and Twitter at Tees by LaDon. And you can catch up with me on Facebook. All you have to do is search down LaDon Black. Thanks so much for having me, Farajii.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. LaDon, thank you so much for being so good for the culture.
All right. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come back, I just want to offer a question of the day. We're going to move on. I've been keeping up on this Dave Chappelle situation, and I'm finding that this is really interesting. I'm going to share with you with my sister, Reese Colbert. Y'all know Reese, what she had to say about it. And it was her Twitter post that made me want to ask you this question. And I'm going to tell you this question when we come back from our break. So stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches! Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice
to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Like, wow, Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared. You dig?
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Folks, we now want to turn our attention to what happened to Dave Chappelle in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Bowl. You remember just a couple of days ago, it was reported that Dave Chappelle was doing his stand-up set when all of a sudden a man comes onto the stage and jumps on him and essentially tackles him. Now, people who were there, the security and other personnel there, took the man and took him to the backstage. Now, I want us to show, Keena, if you could pull up a picture, if we could find a picture of Mr. Isaiah Lee. This is Isaiah Lee. Look at this. Look at how disfigured he is. Yeah, they beat this man backstage, broke his arm, and as you can see, they've done, some considerable damage to his face. Now, it was just reported yesterday that the Los Angeles Police Department, the LA City Attorney's Office, says that Mr. Isaiah Lee will not be charged with a felony, but he will just be charged with a misdemeanor for the attack, even though it was reported that he did have some weapon. Now, when he was first detained, according to the police, that he would be charged with an assault with a deadly weapon, but that now has gone down to a misdemeanor. Now, when I heard about this, of course, this brings up what happened to Chris Rock at the Oscars, right? Now, Chris Rock was even at the show. He performed just before Dave Chappelle performed, and after the attack, he came out and made light of the situation and said something to the effect of, was that Will Smith? But it did make me think, and this is why I want to pose this question to you that are watching us. And this is something that I saw my sister Reese Colbert, of the founder of Black Women Views. Check out what she said in her tweet about this situation, which I thought to be fascinating. She said, "I recall the timeline totally apoplectic, aghast, and traumatized by a slap. Yet I see mostly jokes and cheers over this. This is why I don't take folks seriously, because the energy always switches up." So it made me wonder, should we be happy about the fate of Isaiah Lee, from him getting beaten up, for him being charged with a misdemeanor? Should we be happy about this? Or is this another opportunity for us to have an ongoing conversation about the relationship between jokes, between a comedian and the audience? I want you to post your thoughts, because I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. For me, when I first heard about the situation, it was like, is this going to become a trend? And I'm going to tell you, I was thinking about it myself, and I talked to my producers about this, like, maybe should we start to have some voices to talk about this? You know, I know a number of comedians, and I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe we should start to have some voices. But I was like, Farajii, just hold up. Let's see how this situation plays out. And then if we find that there is another attack on another comedian, then maybe that's cause for us to have a different conversation. But do you think that we should be happy about this? Do you think so? B Dizzle checked in and says, look, I don't believe every person has a nugget in them, because their nugget can be seriously tainted. It's important to at least search a person's background so you'll know what that's talking about Kevin Sam, excuse me. So we're looking at this. I'm asking that question. Should we be happy with Isaiah Lee's lesser charges? Check this out. Donetta said, if someone wasn't laying hands on me, I would not have wanted that defense. If I could have, I would have stopped him. True. Brother King Lee said, Brother Dave Chappelle could have been seriously hurt. I don't find that incident as a joke. Yeah. Would you be concerned, Brother King Lee? I know we always chat. Would you be concerned if Isaiah Lee, we saw the picture of him, he got a broken arm, he got beaten up in the face. Would you be concerned about his well-being as well? Is his well-being a joke? Because I saw some people making posts about him like, oh man, he got his ass kicked. That's what he gets. But this is another black man. Consequence Taylor checked in and said, consequences are real. Happy? Janine checked in and said, Will didn't run up there and tackle Chris, didn't have weapons. Again, Will's thing was money on money. Non-celebrities can't do what they do. Yep. Sports actuary says, if we have the right to beat up that guy, then why shouldn't the police have the right to beat up suspects? McCole checked in and said, people running up on stages attacking politicians, entertainers, comedians, etc. is nothing new. No, it's not. McCole, I'm totally with you. Donita said, did they give him lesser charges because they didn't want that counter suit? I don't know. That possibly could have been into the conversation, but maybe his intent, maybe they actually just looked at, okay, he tackled him. He didn't shoot him. He didn't stab him. He didn't threaten him. I mean, he tackled him, but I don't know. But should we be happy about this? Because I still don't feel happy. I don't feel happy for Dave Chappelle. And sadly enough, I don't feel happy for Isaiah Lee. Now, he shouldn't have done it. I definitely know that. He shouldn't have done it. But I think that we have to be very, very clear in making sure that we're not creating a culture where our entertainers are going to be attacked, comedians specifically, and that the people who think about doing that, they won't be beaten to the point where we kill them. Let me see what else we got here. Patricia checked in and said they will always have copycat. This person will be held accountable. Yeah, I think that's one of the big concerns. Varnell said, imagine if his security was a few seconds slow. Right. And see, here's the thing about it, folks. We still don't know why. We don't know the motive as to why he did it. So it could be a mental health thing. You know, we often we criticize white media when white people do crazy things, and then the first line of defense is, he needs mental help. We often say, oh my gosh, well, why is that? He needs mental help. Why can't he just be evil? Why can't he just be full of hatred? Why does he just need mental help? Why does he need therapy? Well, will we extend the same grace to Isaiah Lee? Davey Floater checked in and said, I ain't never running up on a comedian. This is a whole warning. Yeah. Jackie Correll said, slapping is disrespectful, period. Yep. Shira X said, this is going to change a lot of things for the public. I think so. Shira. I think that it will also, I don't want to be in any live show and see people running up on stage. That's never good. That is a very, very scary situation. It's like having a fight during a concert, or, you know what I mean? Like, that is a very, very sketchy situation. Christopher Perkins checked in and says, it's saying you can attack any black male and nothing will happen to you. That's the point. That's a good point. That's a good point. So now, like I said, I'm not trying to jump into this space that it's going to always happen. But now, are you concerned that the next comedy show, the next music show, if somebody feels like they have the liberty to just run up on stage and do some harm to the artist? Let me see who else we got. Valerie Kelly said, wait, didn't the guy have a weapon on him? Sure, there's no way to guess possible intent or how far he might have considered going in his attack on Chappelle. But, yep. Dr. Time PMD said, in America, it's hard to find a black woman that doesn't think she's a better man than you. Some of you are still talking about Kevin Samuels. It's all good. That Deborah checked in and says, I think that many people use laughter to cover up a lot of trauma. Facts. We always have. A lot of comedy has been born out of personal tragedy. Absolutely. If you know Deborah, like I know, comedians have some of the darkest past that of a lot of entertainers. I think Jim Carrey talks about that. I know Dave talks about his past and everything. I don't think, they have dark past. So you're absolutely right. Damon Blissett, Damon, you always check in. Monica Seles got stabbed while playing tennis. Yeah. S. Greg 0304, Dave was lucky he didn't have a knife. You're absolutely right. And this is why, and to your point, S. Greg 0304, this is why I think that we shouldn't take it for a joke. We should, and again, this is part of our culture. We love the fact that a man can get his ass kicked, right? Oh, man, beat on that man. But we don't know the full circumstances of that situation. We don't know. Just like we didn't know with the slap situation, where the LAPD said that they were going to arrest Will Smith, and Chris Rock said, no, that's not necessary. Don't arrest that man. So we have to look at it. I want the man to suffer some consequences. I'm just happy that Dave Chappelle is not hurt or fatally wounded, or even the guy Isaiah Lee. I want him to suffer some consequences. I don't want him to be dead. Forensic accountant say he did have a knife. It was attached to a replica gun. That's what I also heard too. Yeah, he did have a knife. And Varnell said, making sure. Varnell said, this is the first of a troubling issue that will change some things. Also, look at how these so-called leaders are trying to set us back decades. They know no boundaries. And Patricia said this, and then I'm going to wrap with this one, folks, and I appreciate all the comments. She said, we talked about empathy on one of your shows. We sure did. Is this a time to have empathy? Patricia Johnson, I don't know, but we may. Now, I'm all for, if someone attacks you, fight with you, fight with them, those who fight with you. If you are aggressed upon, that's how I was taught. That was the school of thought that I come from, right? That's what I teach my children. You don't put your hands on anybody, but somebody put their hands on you, you fight with them, and then guess what? I truly believe you will be granted the victory. But in a case like this, we don't know the mindset of that man. We don't know the full story. So I'm wondering, as we are weeks away from the Oscar situation, now we have this situation. Is there a lesson that we can all learn as spectators? Because we're not, it was Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, but we're all spectators. So is there something that we can take from this moment and add to that larger conversation about comedians and the relationship that it has with its audience? Is there something that we can all learn from that? Just something for us to think about, folks. Just something for us to think about as we move on, because I would hate to hear that another Black comedian or any other comedian in that respect, any comedian or artist or entertainer is attacked while on stage. That is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for Will Smith. It should be unacceptable for the attacker of Dave Chappelle, Isaiah Lee. It's unacceptable. You don't have to, if you don't like what somebody says, you don't go up there on stage and just knock them in the face, throw them on the ground, slap them. You don't do that. You don't do that. And for us, it's going to be important that we set a new culture, not one that makes jokes or make it lighthearted to attack people, but you have to make sure that people stay safe. Because if somebody wilds out at a concert, at a comedy show, and you're there, things can go left real quick, and a lot of people can potentially be hurt. All right, folks. I thank you for all of your comments. We're going to try to do more question of the days to get an opportunity. I love engaging with all of you. So, to hear what you have to say, to bring it out to the forefront, and then I'm sure for me to bring it up and then for us to talk about it. This is part of building the community here at the culture on Black Star Network, and this is why we want to do it. And so we're going to have more kind of question of the days, question of the week, things that we can think about and we can talk about together. But I appreciate all of the comments and all of the thoughts. And even during our course of our conversations today, so many of you are having these discussions, still talking about everything from Kevin Samuel, still talking about everything from white nationalist ideas. I love it. Let's keep it going. And you can certainly follow me on all my social media, and let's have some conversations. I love to have Twitter discussions. I love to have Facebook conversations. Whatever the case may be, let's keep these conversations going. All right, the last word of the week. Look, let me just share with you very quickly, folks. This week, we learned about abortion with that Supreme Court opinion being leaked. Let's not take for granted the power of choice. Not just choice in that abortion debate, but let's not take for granted that you can choose however you want to live your life, right? But guess what? Also choose to think about other people. That's it. That's it. If we understand the very, very important power of choice and understand that in this country, choice is slowly deteriorating. And that's what we have to continue to fight for each and every day in this country. We have to fight for it. But your choices has to be in alignment with the community that you should be a part of, that you're a part of. If your choices aren't in alignment with the community, with the whole, with the people, with the group that you're a part of, whatever group you may be a part of, then guess what? We're going to find ourselves being individual and dysfunctional, and we're also going to find ourselves being broken. So the power of choice is something that is worthy and necessary for us to fight for in this country. Because I truly believe that none of us are choosing to be crazy. We're not choosing to be uneducated. We're not choosing to be uncivilized. I truly believe that we do want the same thing, but we just got to fight and work for it. Just like we saw in the abortion debate, where women are fighting for the choice to do what they can do and what they want to do with their bodies. And we should be supportive of that. We should be supportive of that just as much as Men should be able to do it. But those choices, under each choice, there should be some knowledge. Under each choice, there should be some understanding. And under each choice, there should be some consideration for your fellow man, your fellow woman, your neighbor, your family, your coworker, your community, your country. There should be some consideration, because we don't live in a bubble. We don't live in a vacuum. We live together. All right, folks. Continue to support us here at Black Star Network. I want to highly recommend that you check us out. We've been having some fantastic conversations, so we want you to support us. BlackStarNetwork.com. Support Black-owned media that is unapologetic and unfiltered, and we will continue to have the discussions that are important to you. Make sure you go to Black Star Network, download the app for free, and tell your friends and family about it. And of course, if you can't give, then make sure you share. If you can't give, say it with me, y'all. If I can't give, share. If I can't give, share. Let people know that Black Star Network is all about giving you the truth. Even though you say, oh man, I don't want to hear it. Guess what? We're going to do our best to give it to you. And we want you to share that mighty, mighty word. All right. All right, folks, my time has been very well spent. I thank you for having a phenomenal week. Next week, got so many fantastic guests lined up. We're going to check back in with Dr. Horn to give us the latest about what's going on in Russia. I got to talk to Dr. Harry Williams from the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. He's going to talk to us about a new project that's coming up around college debt and admissions. I mean, there's so many great things that we're going to be checking in next week. So make sure y'all tune in. All right, stay tuned. Up next at the 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time hour is Mr. Roland Martin Unfiltered, my big brother. And as always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, I hope you have a safe and great weekend. And let's talk and let's chat again on Monday for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Peace.